This might be the most important pay-per-view that's not been produced by WWE since WCW's Bash in the Beach 1996. The game has changed, ladies and gentlemen. Adam Cole is all elite. Bryan Danielson, aka Daniel Bryan, is all elite. Ruby Soho is all elite. We had returns from the Butcher, and we even had the Forbidden Door open with Mahiro Suzuki coming in, and he's going to face Jon Moxley on Dynamite this Wednesday. Literally all out, one of the most important pay-per-views what I think we'll remember for a long time to come in wrestling. This is my review of AEW All Out 2021 here on SCW. Please like, share, subscribe, and let me know in the comments your thoughts of this show. So with every good pay-per-view, we start with the buy-in. Of course, we had the Best Friends, which of course was Orange Cassidy, Wheeler Yuta, and Chuck Taylor, Chucky T, along with Jurassic Express of Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy, taking on HFO and winning in a 10-man tag. This was a fun opener. Everyone had time to get their spots in. It got the crowd invested as well. And Jungle Boy getting the victory with a variation of his STF for the tap-out win. After this, we see that the Jungle Express were leaving ringside area, where we're going to get the traditional hug along with the Best Friends, and of course then HFO, which of course is Matt Hardy, Private Party, the TH2 boys, and Blade as well was ringside also, made the attack at this point as well. Butcher made his return, attacked as well. This then we saw a flurry from the backstage as it looked like the Orange Cassidy was going to get his hair cut from looked to be Jack Evans, I believe, was going to do the dirty deed there. But then we saw Jurassic Express come back. We see Dante Martin, Varsity Blondes, I believe John Silver and Alex Reynolds as well, all come to make the same fist of the babyfaces standing tall, left alone in the ring at the end of this. Very impactful seeing the Butcher back here, probably leads to a hair versus hair match somewhere down the line, and of course all the babyfaces doing the big hug in the middle of the ring as we go in towards the main show. Miro successfully defending the TNT Championship in the open against Eddie Kingston. Fun match this one, probably the most vulnerable Miro has been in the match up to date. It looked like Eddie Kingston had found his way to get through, in fact hitting his DDT finisher. The turnbuckle pad had been exposed and the referee was distracted long enough for it only to be a 2 count near fall. At this point, Eddie Kingston looked like he wanted to throw Miro into the turnbuckle that was exposed. The referee got in the way, didn't want to see it go down that way for Miro to be defeated for the first time in AEW. Of course, the crowd were booing along to this. At this point, no, it was enough of a distraction with, Miro, the referee, and Eddie Kingston all being clustered in the corner. A low blow we saw that from Miro, and then of course then hits one of his kicks to pick up the pinfall victory, and Miro retains the championship. No Lana, no CJ Perry on this one, but you know what? I think Miro is doing a great job on his own right now. Doesn't really need his wife by his side. I'm enjoying his work anyway, so let's see if she debuts at some point by his side further down the line in AEW. Next, Jon Moxley defeated Satoshi Kojima in a match which was hard-hitting, very strong style based. I quite enjoyed it for what it was, but I never believed that it was going to be any other result than a Jon Moxley victory, which he did eventually do with 2 paradigm shifts to get the 1, 2, 3. But after the match was where the Forbidden Door opened and we got something that was really awesome. Mahiro Suzuki coming out to the literally eruption of Chicago, and we see these two just beating each other and both laughing and smiling whilst doing so, both of them loving that sound of pain. And just Suzuki as well has got one of the best entrance themes in the whole of wrestling. To see Chicago sing along was just a really awesome sight. This match has been announced for Dynamite. Cincinnati, Ohio, you're in for a treat. Match 3 saw the Dr. Britt Baker DMD defeat Chris Statlander to retain her AEW Women's Championship. A good match that we saw here. Of course, Britt Baker having Reba, along with Jamie Hayter in her corner. Orange Cassidy was ringside with Chris Statlander. A fun match between these two. Of course, I went to do the DMD. Funnily enough, that was stopped by Chris to actually on the D to do her sort of dupe thing that she does on the nose. That was sort of a nice little pop from the crowd seeing that moment. And Statlander using her power game and showing why she's been, undefeated since coming back to AEW after a long-term injury earlier this year. But eventually things went into the Doctor's favour, and of course she does a curb stomp on the outside, but had leverage from the steps, made it a really impressive looking spot. And Orange Cassidy really showed proper emotion of like, get in the ring to Chris Statlander, which was kind of a cool spot in its own way. Maybe a love angle could be on the way and we could see a different side to Orange Cassidy in AEW. Could be something that could be interesting to see. We got a very clever Adam Cole tease from the Britt Baker, of course, a real life partner of Adam Cole, doing her version of the Panama Sunrise from the second row, which Chicago ate up completely. Of course, it was given the Pittsburgh Sunrise as well for great effect on commentary. From this point onwards, we then saw the lock that is done from Britt Baker, and she picked up the victory. So yeah, good to see, and we'd learn who Britt Baker's next challenger would be later in the evening, but not before my match of the night, match 4, where we saw the Lucha Bros against the Young Bucks in the steel cage for the AEW Tag Team Championships. And let's just start off by saying I can't go through every detail. We'd be here for a long time, but let's just say you'd think the cage would alienate what these guys could do in the ring. It didn't stop it by any stretch of the imagination. The creativity in this match was second to none. Of course, you couldn't escape the cage to win. It was pinfall or submission, so it kept everything in ring in action, and we didn't see anything like off the top of the cage until towards the end. But there were some fun spots there. I mean, when we saw power drivers done on the hardest part of the ring where the cage was, which was done by the older brothers for each team. We saw rounds of super kicks going around the ring. We saw Brandon Cutler throwing in the sneakers, which of course for Matt Jackson had sneakers with thumbtacks on, which opened up the Lucha Bros, which was quite a cool, impressive looking spot. Rips of the mask as well. Literally, there's so much in this match that was so much fun, and there was moments where you just thought yourself, this is definitely going to end here. Of course, we saw BT Trigger. It was done by the Young Bucks as their finisher on Penta. Phoenix looks completely out of the match, makes the save at the dying seconds as well for a crowd eruption. Things go back into the favour of the Lucha Bros though, and we do see Rey Fenix eventually going to the top of the cage, jumping off on a high crossbody, and then we see them hit their sort of power driver, assisted power driver for the finisher and brand new AEW Tag Team Champions. This felt like a defining moment for the Lucha Bros, that it's been faith put in them. You can see for the longest time that we've had little tweaks given them throughout the year that they're going to get this big push in AEW. It's great to see them as Tag Team Champions. The Young Bucks, their reign felt like the right time for it to stop, in my personal opinion, and this cage match, for me, arguably not just match of the night, it's a match of the year candidate, and I expect the Young Bucks will want to go back for these titles. So hopefully this isn't completely written off, and as I've said in previous videos, I'd love to see Santana and Ortiz added to the mix. Three-way dance, I really think that could be the Hardys, Edge and Christian Dudleys of this generation. I'd love to see it. So Tony Khan, if you ever see this, please, for the love of God, book it. I should mention as well, Pac and Andrade was pulled from this event, and there was an interview with Andrade backstage where he denied tampering with the flights for Pac, because that's the reason why this match was pulled. According to AEW, was travel restrictions. Chavo said that he didn't do it, but his face told a very different story. Of course, they had previous history doing this with the Lucha Bros on a previous episode of Dynamite, so it plays well into the narrative. The match with Pac versus Andrade El Idolo will now take place on Rampage this coming Friday. Match 5 was the Casino Battle Royale for the women to determine the #1 contender for Britt Baker. This was a fun match for what it was, but I must admit, I do find myself with the stipulation of 5 people coming in at once. I know they sort of now get sort of their own entrances. I do feel people get a bit lost in the shuffle, and 5 people get thrown in the ring, don't really seem to know what to do. A lot of eliminations seem quite random. Riho's in particular looked like a bit of a blunder. It looked like she hadn't gone over the top rope when this happened, but still, for what it was, this was a fun match. I like the storylines that were, going with the Dark Orders and the Jay who's returned with Ty Conti, and their sort of rivalry with the Bunny and Penelope Ford seemed quite fun to see. All of them were, of course, eventually eliminated. We got down to the final 3 of the match, which was Nyla Rose, we got Thunder Rosa, and of course the Joker card, which ended up being a debuting Ruby Soho, which the crowd loved as well when they were chanting her name before she'd even come out. So I feel it seemed inevitable that this was the right choice, and maybe anybody else I think would have probably seen with disappointment. But still, we got down to the final 2 as Thunder Rosa managed to throw out Nyla Rose, and we got just enough from these 2 of what could be a future epic match on a Dynamite or a Rampage or even pay-per-view. But both were on the over the top rope on the sort of ring apron. Ruby Soho managed to overcome Thunder Rosa, so Soho not only debuting but also going to get a future championship match against Dr. Britt Baker. I personally hope that this is saved till Full Gear. Give us some time to really build this rivalry, don't just throw it away on a week or 2 from now, because I think these 2 could have a really good program. I'd like to see what Ruby's going to bring to the table in AEW. She's a cracking talent in ring, a great signing, and yeah, I think she's going to add a lot of depth to this division. Match 6 was the last fight. We saw Chris Jericho manage to keep his career by defeating MJF. One of the first times MJF has been defeated, I think probably in the singles match since last year at All Out. A bogey pay-per-view for MJF, just maybe, but it could have been also different. MJF looked like he was picking up the victory, because at one point a Wardlow come down to ringside, Jake Hager came down as well, so we saw an inner circle pinnacle style brawl with the bodyguards going up to the ringway, referees trying to break it up. The referee, Audrey Edwards, was distracted. This gave MJF the excuse to use the baseball bat and then hit the Judas effect and get the 1, 2, 3. But of course, what Audrey Edwards didn't see was that on the count of 2, Chris Jericho's leg actually went over the bottom rope, so it shouldn't have counted as a 3 count. One of the other referees on the floor saw this, and we got the match restarted. Eventually, Chris Jericho then getting the victory with his Walls of Jericho, which was really, really cool to see. I love a little fun note as well. I like that we had the countdown effects used of Chris Jericho with his old gimmick when he first debuted in WWE. It was almost the countdown to Jericho's last match. That was a nice touch to give some heel heat to MJF. I do feel this was the best match that these two have had together, although still, I do feel that this was probably one of the more slower paced matches on the pay-per-view, but I do feel this was a satisfactory end. I look forward to seeing what these two will do going forward now on AEW, because as it's the last fight, we shouldn't see these tangle anymore. Next was the match we've all been waiting for 7.5 years. It's CM Punk's return in Chicago to take on Darby Allin. This was a fantastic match because I really liked the story that was built around the match. Can CM Punk still be best in the world? Can he still hang with the ones there? And at the starting points of the match, Darby Allin was getting on top of CM Punk in the early exchanges, but it was a slow, methodical style once again. This was a very slow-paced match, and it was actually used with the experience of CM Punk to get on top with Darby Allin, using some of the rest holds and stuff like that, because of the fact that, you know, that's Punk's style in the ring. It took away from what were Darby's strengths, and I like that that narrative was used as part of the match. But of course, CM Punk still trying to find if he still had it or not. The pace quickened up. Darby Allin trying to go for a coffin drop off the top rope, missed it, but CM Punk just sitting up, and then actually reversed then a poison Rana a couple of minutes later, turned it into a GTS, which was the second of the match. The first one, going back to the storytelling of CM Punk still had it, Darby Allin fell out of the ring. On the second occasion, he landed smack bang in the middle of the ring, and that gave CM Punk the 1, 2, 3. Very, very cool match. Great to see CM Punk back. Not miss a step, in my personal opinion. This was the perfect match and the perfect story to tell at the start here. I now want to see CM Punk do something major in AEW. I want to see him change the game, change the culture, if you want. I don't know what it is quite yet that I want to see, but working with younger talent is great, but a humble CM Punk for me in the long term doesn't work. The voice of the voices that got him over as the top babyface in 2011, some of his great heel work we've seen with the Straight Edge Society and other, forms of character work we've seen like that from him, whether it's a heel turn, something, I don't know. We need something with Punk, but I'm guessing in the short term, fans are going to cheer him wherever he goes. You've got to keep him as babyface. I don't think the heel run works quite yet. So for me, just do something impactful. Maybe a feud with MJF, that could be perfect, because MJF is great with the heel heat. Will probably, with the mic work, bring out the best in CM Punk as well. So for me, this would be a rivalry I would like to see going into Full Gear. Paul Wight squashed QT Marshall and the rest of the jobbers that is in his stable, chokeslam for the victory. This was basically your toilet break. People to get a bit of a breather between CM Punk's match and the main event, which was Kenny Omega and Christian Cage. You could tell this was done as well, because after this we had the announcements for what was coming up for Dynamite and Rampage, a couple of backstage segments as well, with John Moxley talking about Suzuki, as well as that Malachi Black talking about his match with Dustin Rhodes is going to take place. So, we could see that we were just having a bit of a brief pause there, but nothing really of note of this match, but Paul Wight squashing QT Marshall in a number of minutes. But it led us nicely to the main event, which was the AEW World Championship, which was Kenny Omega against Christian Cage. Really good match, really fun match between these two. You knew that these two are fantastic in-ring workers. I love the uses of tables as well early in the match, double stomp from the ring apron through a table onto Christian Cage, which was a nice little spot there. As well, Christian later in the match actually doing a spear off that same apron to go for another table with Kenny Omega. Another fun little spot once again. Kenny Omega had been working on Christian Cage's neck throughout the match with a lot of those sort of double underhook dragon suplexes and those sort of V triggers as well. Very nasty looking spot. You always hope that Christian's going to be alright when these moves hit on him. But it got to the point as well where, of course, Callis calls to the back. We see Carl Anderson, Doc Gallows trying to help Kenny Omega. This didn't work out very, very well. Christian Cage hitting the Impaler, and of course it was a near fall count, didn't get the full 3 count. Kenny Omega goes for the one-wing angel, but instead of doing it traditionally, we saw it off the second turnbuckle for the victory. This was a pretty cool looking spot, a pretty cool looking finish. At the end of the match then we see a beatdown given them with the Super Elite, which is of course got the Young Bucks, Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows, along with Brandon Cutler out there and Don Callis. But we see the save done from Jurassic Express, or we say the save, they attempt the save, doesn't really go very well. Kenny Omega says, look, don't you see it? you should see by now. Doesn't matter if you're the best of the world or who you are, I'm always going to be the one that prevails. The only people that can beat me for this championship are either not here, they're either retired, or they're probably dead. And that led then to the lights going out. And of course, we thought, so, well, perhaps maybe this is going to be where Bryan Danielson makes his debut. No, Adam Cole, baby, which I thought was a great reference actually, because Adam Cole was actually killed off on the Being the Elite many years ago when he went to go and work with WWE and NXT, so kind of was a nice little twist with that there. Adam Cole, of course, coming into the ring, you think he's actually going to be the one going after Kenny Omega. Instead, he super kicks Jungle Boy, and then we see him join the Super Elite, and of course he says that at this point that this is the most dominant faction in wrestling, and there's no chance in hell that you're actually going to see anyone topple this group, which I think was great play for what was first to come with the next reveal we're going to get. Of course, Team Hell No. Of course, no chance in hell though. A big dig at Vince McMahon and showing that, of course, that Adam Cole is now all elite and with this stable. Kind of reminded me of like the days when Bret Hart was with the NWO. It's kind of like you've put him in at a spot. You could have put him in straight at the top, going for Kenny Omega. Instead, he's sort of in that nice position of that upper mid carder, can do a good role against some of the people that perhaps are going to go after Kenny Omega. He's going to create a nice little spot on his own here in All Elite Wrestling. Doesn't need to go straight after for the championships. And the thing that's fun about it as well, having your, someone that was NXT champion when Dynamite started, the longest reigning NXT champion, it's just proven that AEW won that war. If there was ever a war in place, it wasn't. AEW won it, and it just didn't just win it. They now took that prize asset from what was NXT after his contract expired, put him back in All Elite Wrestling. So yeah, it's pretty cool. But anyway, as Kenny Omega then goes back on and says, see, I told you, we swerved you. Did you really believe that we were scared? No, we've got this sorted. And he's going to go and do his goodnight bang and all that sort of stuff to finish off, but then music hit once again, and this time it is Bryan Danielson coming down to ringside. At this point, Kenny vacates the ring. We've got the heels of the Super Elite left in the ring. We see Jurassic Express, Christian Cage and Bryan Danielson on the other side of the ring. A big brawl ensues, and of course the babyfaces come out on top, and poor Nick Jackson, who's gone through so much hell through the cage match early in the evening, thrown about by Bryan Danielson. This was a great way to finish the evening. Of course, Bryan Danielson looked happy, he looked at it, he looked on it, and he looks very excited to be there. And you could just tell this is a game-changing moment, because earlier in the evening you've had CM Punk. Of course, he's been away for many years, arguably brought big numbers with his debut to Rampage, and a lot of people talking about All Elite Wrestling. Now you've got not one but two big debuts in the main event scene as well here. This is almost the effect of, like I said, the biggest pay-per-view since WCW Bash in the Beach 96, because all the cards were dealt here and put on the table of where All Elite Wrestling plan and look to go next. We've got someone that makes the Elite a lot stronger. We've got someone that's going to oppose the Elite as well that could be a lot stronger. And I wouldn't be surprised if Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson was the first feud that was to go from this, because of course overshadows Adam Cole's debut as well. So you've kind of got that little battle in there. Everything's been tweaked and done as a masterstroke from Tony Khan and the booking team of All Elite Wrestling. I'm really excited to see where this is going to go forward, because now Dynamite, once again, you just can't miss it. And if you are, you're missing out, and that's pretty much where we are at this point with All Elite Wrestling, because they've thrown out a pay-per-view here where so many shocks, twists and turns, great ring action as well. This is a full 5-star pay-per-view. I mean, of course, maybe a couple of matches you can argue maybe didn't need to be on this pay-per-view. They were strategically placed to make sure that the crowd didn't burn out, and for us at home as well, was to give you that little bit of just a little bit of a break. I mean, Big Show or Paul Wight, if you want, it's QT Marshall, is kind of that prime example of it. So yeah, for me, this is easily a 5-star pay-per-view. I'd even argue to say that this could be pay-per-view of the year, certainly for importance, if nothing else. And at this point, yeah, literally, just might as well say it, I'm with All Elite Wrestling. That is thrown over to you, WWE. Can you match this? You may have the finance, you may have a lot of talent there, you've got the television deals, but you're not giving the substance, you're not giving the detail that you're getting here from All Elite Wrestling. And that is the big note that's coming from this, because if you don't believe at this point that AEW is going to catch up with WWE eventually, honestly, I don't know what else needs to happen, because it's going to happen. The gap is going to bridge. Ratings for sure. Finances, yeah, I mean, the Khans have got a lot of money, yes, but I mean, at the same time, WWE have the foundation of the company that's been going for many years. But one thing's for sure, with ratings and stuff, the tide, it's gonna turn, and we have a player here that's coming after WWE. This is feeling for the first time in a long time like we've got a real competitive nature once again, because we've known there's been noises from All Elite Wrestling for the last few years, but this really feels like a defining moment, a game-changing moment, and yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes from here. But that's what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd like to know your thoughts of AEW All Out. I thought it was a fantastic pay-per-view. Definitely would love to do this as a retro review at some point in a few years' time. Literally that good. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And yeah, please like, share, and subscribe. Check out the latest Q&A Ask SCW available on the channel for you right now. And have yourselves a great day. You've been watching SCW. Take care.